Welcome to another edition of Bowie TV Sports Spotlight. During this hour, we're bringing you highlights from our shows focused on all things sports in the DMV. Please be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. First up on Pitt Sports Zone, hear from Bowie State Softball head coach Powell and current players of the program about this upcoming season on this part 2. Next on Washington Capitals coverage. Check out the pregame and postgame press conferences with head coach Spencer Carbery after their 3-2 overtime loss against the Avalanche. Then, Bowie TV producers Kassandra, Ramsey, and Candi discussed their thoughts on the White House College Sports Roundtable. Lastly, Candi discusses the major free agency moves from the Washington Commanders on all burgundy and gold everything on this part 2. Don't go anywhere, and as always, enjoy this week's episode of Bowie TV Sports Spotlight. Like that little soft good, that is not Taylor.
Yes.
So listen, because you did that, Taylor, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
So let's talk about what we're going to do in this segment with you ladies is I want you ladies to give each other their flowers, right? And I want you to compliment the player that is on screen with you. And by doing so, I want you, Taylor, to tell me what role does Erin play in the team's success? What makes her that spark and that excellent teammate that we know that she is?
Erin definitely is the mom of the group, I would say. She has that mom energy, and if you're acting up, she's gonna say something. And when she wants you to be serious, she's gonna say, "Okay, get yourself together." She's very funny. I would say Erin's very funny at practice. She's very loud, so you'll definitely hear her throughout the whole practice. You hear her a lot throughout the gym. She yells a lot. But Erin definitely is the mom. She's my best friend on the team, so I love her for that. But she'll definitely get you in place where you need to be. If you need to act up or if you need to settle down a little bit and get right, she's definitely going to tell you.
Erin, same for you regarding Taylor.
Just like she said, Taylor is sort of my best friend on the team. She's sort of just like a leader without even knowing that she's leading. Like there'll be times when Coach Powell will say, "Oh, Taylor did this right," and she's looking at me like, "What did I even do?" But that's just like she's been doing this for so long, and it's just so muscle memory, and she's just so into her craft, and also just being so selfless. Where like she has the best day, and she's like, "Oh, like I just did this, this, and this." So she's like that humble leader that we need. And that any class can look to, even being the same class as her, being a junior. I still look up to her every day. She's always reliable. Any situation where at practice when they're like, grab a partner, there's Taylor. Like I'm always with Taylor.
Coach, when you look at Taylor and you look at Erin, and you can tell the chemistry that they have as friends. How important is it for not only the chemistry on the field, but how the chemistry off the field translate to it on the field?
Yeah, that balance is tremendous for our team. I mean, those two, their personalities are alike, but they're different. I mean, they both will tell you. I used to tell them all the time, fix it, fix it, fix it. That was our thing to both of them. But they've grown up so much, and the chemistry that those two have. You know what I mean? No matter it's on the field and definitely off the field. It permeates through the whole team. You know what I mean? Because like she said, Erin, we can hear Erin no matter where she is. She's screaming, she's cheering, no matter where she is, we're gonna be able to hear her. But that is, and that gets Taylor going, and Taylor's plays shortstop, so she's basically the coach on the field.
Yeah,
what I mean. She's the coach on the field, and so all of that works together. And when it works together, it's a beautiful thing. We got rings to prove it. So.
Thank you.
Erin Lynn, I'm gonna start with you on this question. What are you most excited about for this upcoming season? I thought y'all was gonna get the same questions.
I think that personally, being an upperclassman, I'm excited to see the freshmen and sophomores step up, because being a junior, it's actually given me a lot of time to reflect on how the people before me felt about me and how they were like, they didn't really like us, or like it was a rough start, but seeing like the way they felt about us and being in that same position now, like it makes me more appreciative of the fact that they took the time to lay down the traditions and as rough as they were, instill that grit within us to pass down and leave for the people coming behind us. And so just seeing all that unfold, and like the amount of time that we've been putting in, coming back early this year, and the day in and day out, like from sun up to sundown, eating lunch together, team bonding, all these activities, that is what starts the wins. Like that is why we're able to thrive throughout the whole season and keep going and dig. And no matter how long the season is, we're fully prepared just because we put in that time. So just being able to see it all unfold is what I'm looking forward to.
Good answer. Good answer.
Taylor?
What I'm most excited for, personally for me, I'm excited to play my position that I've been waiting to get. You know, I played many different positions on this team now.
Yes.
I played third, I pitched, I played second. A little bit of time at short. But I'm really excited to play where I've played all my life, and I can show Coach Powell what I can do there. As a team, I'm excited to play all these games that we're about to play. My favorite thing about the season is the bus rides, though. Our energy on the bus is fun. I don't know how to explain it. You really have to be on a bus with us. It's a crazy bus ride, and definitely getting to the hotels and doing whatever we can with each other for the time we have. It's fun. Sometimes we run into inconveniences where we can't get into our rooms sometimes. We sit there for hours in the lobby waiting to get to our rooms. It's a fun time just traveling with the team, and I'm most excited for that, really.
Yeah, that's a good one.
When we, and shout out to, I don't know who is manning the Bowie State softball IG page, but they have me in tears internally. Like, you know, Taylor for pitcher 2026.
Oh man! Actually, I did. I went to the guy and made him change that.
Then they said when you guys were talking earlier, they was like, "That was so beautiful. Y'all gonna make me cry." I don't know who's manning the softball page right now, but you talk about the trips. Have a trip coming up this week. How excited are you about this HBCU Invitational in Atlanta? Taylor, starting with you.
I'm definitely really excited, not for the bus ride, let alone because it's gonna be really long and exhausting. But I'm excited to face the new people. We get to see the new faces that we don't see often, even though we're gonna see Claflin. We're gonna see a bunch of these new people that don't really know what Bowie State is. And I'm excited to show them what we are about and just prove that we can hang with the upper dogs up there.
Absolutely. Erin?
I'm not too excited for the bus ride either, but I know in the end it'll be good bonding time and definitely fun to see the freshmen do their tradition of karaoke that we have on the bus. Coach Powell can't wait for that. But also just being invited to this tournament is a huge deal just because Bowie State softball is already starting to get exposure, but even playing against these teams and even just the live streams or like the media coverage that they get and being able to put our name out there and put our best foot forward and know like Bowie State is on the rise and has been on the rise and still just competing, always competing. Never scared to face any team in any type of conference, any of that. Claflin, even though we usually see them at the end of the year, we're ready at the beginning. So just excited to get the ball rolling and have that first tournament.
Well, ladies, I definitely thank you for joining Coach and I tonight. Look forward to, again, like I told Ryan and Margot, look forward to this week. Look forward to seeing what you guys put together and the tournament and the opponents that you guys are facing with the FAMUs, the MCATs, the Fort Valleys. Not necessarily Cleveland, but
Alcorn State.
Alcorn State.
Yeah.
And then there was one more, right?
You said Clark Atlanta.
Yes. So, but I look forward to this week. I know you ladies are ready. Every tournament I've seen you, come, whether you had off a lot more freshmen last year, you're going into this year a little bit more balanced. Regardless of the roster, I've seen you ladies work it as if you've all been playing together for a couple of years. So I look forward to you ladies this week. Go Bulldogs. Thank you again for joining us. Now, Coach, as we let Adri, and Taylor go, we're going to bring on Coco and Presley.
Yes.
But I have a little twist for this one, Coach.
I
have a little twist for this one. They don't know that. I'm going to bring them on. I have a twist for this one.
Yeah, bring them on. They together. Hey.
So for this one, ladies, I actually have... So I know you ladies are familiar. You know I love giving back. You know I love pouring into the youth. Whether I'm doing my backpack drives, free raffle bikes. This, for tonight, for you ladies, I have Soraya Lott. Soraya Lott is 9 years old. Soraya is first base, and she plays for Charles County softball team. She's also the daughter of Valerie and Eugene Lott. I was at Bowie State with Valerie, and I played football with her dad at Largo. So I'm going to bring Soraya on. I want to give her that experience to know what it's like and to see. And just hearing you ladies, I'm watching her backstage as Ryan, Margot, Taylor, and Erilyn was talking, and I can just see her lighting up, just soaking up all of the info that they were saying, but also having that to look forward to something. So, Soraya, I'm gonna let you kick it off with a question first.
Hey. All right. So I have a question, and my first question is, what should I practice the most if I want to be really good at softball?
Ooh. Okay. What should you practice the most in want to be a...
No, she just said a good softball player.
Just a regular good softball player.
I think for me, the most important thing when I first started, maybe not when I first started, but I had to realize that working hard outside of your team practice is probably the best thing you can do to make you better. Practice, Coach Powell says it all the time, practice is the time where we get better as a team, but outside of practice, if you work by yourself, anytime you have the chance, really, whether it's sitting in your room, throwing the ball against the wall, or going outside and hitting off the tee, any of those things, those are how you get better. It's just individual.
Go.
Go, Coco.
Go ahead, Coco. You up?
Oh, okay. I would say for me, it would be working on your mentals. At a young age, just learning that it's fun. Softball is just fun, and it's not that serious, and to just be comfortable in where you're at. So have fun, but stay focused.
Good answer.
All right, Soraya, go ahead and fire one more off, Soraya. And when you ask your next question, Soraya, after you ask your last one, before I get to the ladies, I'm going to ask you a question. So go ahead, Soraya.
All right. And my other question is, what's your favorite part of softball?
Ooh, can I?
Yeah, you go first.
My favorite part of softball is definitely the games, for sure. Not the practice, the games. I mean, I love practice, but the games is just where I can really, truly just give it my all, and with no regrets. Like, that's every day though. But it's just, it's fun. Like, I don't know how to explain it. My adrenaline, the excitement of like being with my teammates, knowing we about to go get a dub. Like, so like, it's just exciting because like I love my team. So like I love playing and I love my team. So it's like,
Yeah,
it's a win-win.
that's what I was gonna say. I feel like my favorite part of softball is 100% the friendships I've made playing softball. Um, I've met some of
Any lineup changes for you guys today?
Same lineup.
When you guys got into the playoffs on the last night of the season 2 years ago, you had 4 2-1 games in the last month of the season. It's one of the highest concentrations of 2-1 wins in franchise history. You've had 2 of them in the last 10 days or so, and one that essentially was won, the Ottawa game. Mm-hmm. What goes into the mindset, kind of imbuing the mindset that you want? Because you've mentioned this a couple of times, guys being willing to win a game 1-0, 2-1, especially at this time of year, and having the patience to play that way, especially against a high-octane team like the one you got today.
Yeah, it's going to be a significant challenge tonight because even when you're playing well against a team like Colorado, the counter punch can come so quickly that you can be in very good position. You can have a lot of momentum. You can be doing a ton of really good things, and then one instance can flip that, and it can end up in the back of your net, or it can end up in an odd man situation. And so that's where they provide so many challenges overall, but us just being patient and staying with it. And I think it's just, I mentioned this yesterday, just a commitment to when you're willing to check and defend. And now this is going to pose a whole nother level of challenge with 29-8 and the rest of the crew that they have. But your urgency level and your attention to detail in every situation that's offensively through the neutral zone and defensively, if you're paying attention to another level, which I feel like our guys have done a pretty good job of lately, that's where I feel like you can just take the scoring chances from 20 down to 13. And now you get great goaltending and like we have, and you can win some games 1-0 and 2-1. And so hopefully we're playing that way and it looks like that, and then hopefully we're able to score 4 or 5. That's what the goal is.
From an early game perspective, what are the points of emphasis against a team that's 2 time zones away and is already clinched a playoff spot?
So the obvious ones of doing a job against their top guys, and that's all encompassing from our entire group. It comes in a little bit of different forms. Special teams will be huge tonight. I think if I were to pull one thing of the whole group of their team, of what is one thing, if the Washington Capitals have success today, what did they do well? We're going to have to do a really good job of when we have to defend, of coming back inside, sorting situations out, and finding a way to get out of that shift without being a minute and a half in the defensive zone. Because if they stack those shifts on you, not only are those individual shifts dangerous, but the momentum and the fatigue that it creates, it causes a real problem. And so you saw too many of those. We were fine in their building. It was a 1-goal game, I want to say with like 8 or 9 minutes to go in the third period, but just felt like there was too much momentum created through the game of those sustained ozone shifts that they're so good at creating because of their skating and their motion and their skill. We have to cut that down. So they're going to get a few of them, but can we make it 4 or 5 in a 60-minute game instead of 12? Because if they get 12 of those shifts, like I said, not only are they probably generating some good looks off of those shifts, but they're also creating momentum and fatigue in your group.
Logan starts tonight?
Yeah.
Looking ahead, do you guys know if David Kampf is going with you on the road?
I do not know. That was the original plan. I don't have specifics on his travel, but to meet us at some point, whether it's in St. Louis, but coming on the road.
She kind of took my question, so I'll ask another one. Jared Bednar, since you know him so well, is there tendencies when you coach against him that you know him better than someone else, or not really?
Tendencies that I've learned over the years from watching his team and how he deploys and how they play, definitely. And were those the same tendencies that he used back in the East Coast League days? No, because the personnel is a little bit different, but I know him and why they've had so success, those motivational tactics and his team being ready to play and all that stuff goes without saying. But you learn some things about coaches, especially when they have a core group that's been together as long as these guys have, and now they've added Nikash over the last couple of years, and then Kadri being back and Brock Nelson. So there's things that you can really identify of like, this is what Bedsy's trying to do with his group from a structure standpoint.
Hang on a second. Before this game, you talked about the need to kind of stop those lengthy D-zone shifts and exit efficiently, which I felt like you guys did pretty well for the first 40. How much does it sting that essentially all three of the goals they get are off plays where you had pucks on your stick and could have exited the zone and maybe prevented that?
Yeah, I thought overall we did a good job for the most part against, like I said before the game, as good a team as there is in the National Hockey League. They're sitting where they are with 100 points for a reason. So they cause you all sorts of issues and have had a fantastic season. So if you look at the game as a whole and how we played through that and the opponent, I thought we did a good job for the most part. Now you reference 3 specific instances where we just sort of failed to manage that, which when it's a tight game, those become big plays, but they also make some mistakes as well that give us opportunities too, so you can't just say, I wish we wouldn't have done that one thing. The mistakes happen in a game for both teams, and so we just made a few that end up in the back of our net, but so did they, and just didn't do quite enough.
So, in your opinion, is that you let one slip, or you were able to come back and get a point against the NHL's best team?
I mean, it's hard to say you let a game slip like that. I mean, we're leading the game going into the third period 1-0. So in that sense, would you like to bear down? But they also, like when you look at the underlying numbers of tonight, they've got us outchanced. Not a significant, just a little bit. So those games can go either way, and you're protecting a lead. You give them one back, so it's 1-1. But like I said, overall, I thought we played a pretty good hockey game overall. Made a few mistakes. They make one more play. Overtime, we couldn't get off. We had that puck. We tried to. Marty doesn't normally play overtime, but just with his skating ability and being able to stick with 29, I went with that call of him out there, and unfortunately, it goes sideways on him.
Obviously not the outcome that you're looking for, but what's it like being on the bench and watching Alex get his 1,000th? Yeah, I mean, a great moment. I honestly, until a few weeks ago, I didn't even know, like going into the season, I had no idea. We knew the 900, and so this is just recent of this coming up in the combined playoff and regular season goals. So we actually noticed as a staff the last couple games, like there was a few instances where guys were passing to him in spots where I was like, it seems odd. Like he had a pretty good chance there, and then come to find out, that he's going for his 1,000th goal, and it's just another accolade for him and his just incredible career, and to get 1,000 goals and do it on home ice and do it in the way I'm always like, I like the way things are done, and thought the Islanders and how he scored there and the celebration, like that iconic moment, and this obviously not on that stage, but on the power play in his office, huge goal to tie the game late in the third period. I like, it's a big goal. So it was a big moment.
I was going to say, you're kind of reflective of your power play all season, but he hadn't scored a power play goal at home all season, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and that's his first goal from the flank.
Yeah.
All year. I'm pretty sure, like I know he scored 5-on-5 there, but I'm pretty sure that's the first time he shot it in on the power play from the flank, which is, think about that.
Just, I guess, the power play hadn't been good before that.
Yeah.
Good to see to get one break.
Yeah, I mean, it's struggling. There's no doubt. We tried different personnel. It's a good penalty kill, so you got to factor that in, but we've got to do more with the power plays we get. Cole's just, it's going to take some time. Like tonight and playing against Colorado, a really good team, really fast team that make you defend. Now, Cole gets to experience that, running the power play. But we need more from our power play, excuse me.
Frank's injury, is there any update? And what did you think of, it looked like Devin Taves kind of gave him a bit of an unnecessary shove there as he was headed towards him.
Yeah, lower body. I haven't been updated on the extent of it, but left the game lower body, didn't return. Yeah, it gives him a little shove. It's a bang-bang play. I look at it more from, usually when you're in those situations, you want to be careful because you're a goaltender. You know what I mean? Because if you push someone in that's going, 25 miles an hour on top of your goaltender, usually your goaltender's getting hurt in those scenarios. So they're fortunate for that, but it's unfortunate for us because Frankie leaves the game early and then it's sort of we're down to 11 forwards.
What's the message on the bench after the Landeskog goal? You guys have talked all season about Thompson bailing you guys out. What's the message after one like that?
I think it's exactly that. As guys weren't rattled. I mean, LT made a bunch of saves that easily could have been in the back of the net before that from a number of their guys. So you just chalk it up as, makes a mistake, but we're going to find a way to bail him out and find a way to get a goal.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Coaching from the Couch. This is your weekly DMV Sports Update, and I am your host, Candi Waller, checking in as I love to do sometimes throughout the year when it's a hot topic, which this one is about, to give you the latest and greatest information on what the happenings are in sports around the Washington metropolitan area. As you all can see, I am not here at all by myself. I have the pleasure and honor of being joined on this episode with fellow Bowie TV producer and host of the Esquire Coach, Kassandra Ramsey. Kassandra, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you all may know from capturing and catching Kassandra's content that she is an attorney and she's an NIL expert. And one of the things that has been in the news here recently is the White House College Sports Roundtable that took place last week. And so I had questions. And I said, wait, if I have questions, we can cover this. I can ask Kassandra. I can just ask her. And so I had to bring the expert in. So you all know how I do. Hey, if I don't know, let's bring in the expert. So Kassandra, could you give us some background on just what was the purpose of the event? Just what it was and what the overall purpose was.
Yeah, sure. So the event, the roundtable held at the White House last week, is really kind of a result of the changes that have come to college sports over the last 4 or 5 years or so. Let's say since 2021 for sure, when college athletes gained the right to profit from their name, image, and likeness. Around that time, we had a United States Supreme Court case addressing college athletics that had nothing to do with NIL. The case is known as Alston versus NCAA, and it addressed not non-education. I mean, it addressed education-related benefits and the NCAA's ability to restrict the amount of education-related benefits that college athletes could receive. And in that case, the court did a few things. It said that the NCAA could preserve amateurism by no longer restricting education related benefits, but restricting non-education related benefits. But most importantly, and ultimately, what led to the roundtable on Friday was that the court made it clear that the NCAA's rules are, in fact, subject to federal antitrust law, and that the United States Supreme Court would not be giving the NCAA an antitrust exemption. So, how does that fast forward us to Friday? So, if you are follow college sports at all, or just a casual observer, I'm sure you've heard those letters NIL. You may have even heard now schools. Several athletes have sued the NCAA in order to extend their eligibility or to get eligibility back. They sued the NCAA regarding their right to transfer, and a lot of those cases are crux on antitrust law. Many of the NCAA's rules violate federal antitrust law because they um, restrict the athlete's ability to trade or transfer to another school, and without any real consent from the athlete. So all of these things are having a direct effect on colleges and their ability to kind of navigate the space. And then also this season, this um, college sports season, specifically started with college football. We had the first season where we were in the revenue sharing era, which is where colleges and universities are now able to share revenue directly with their athletes, and that has led to essentially like a financial arms race. And some schools are kind of being left in the dust, and even some of the bigger schools are having to reallocate funds in ways that they may not want to. So it has led to some in college sports feeling like we need a change. All over these years, the NCAA and the conferences have lobbied to Congress to try to get some NIL or college sports legislation passed, and that has not happened. So now the president has ended the conversation and held a roundtable on Friday.
So, Kassandra, can you give everyone, and maybe I should have started here, but I think this is still an amazing segue, regardless of you sharing how your background ties into this, so that those who are seeing you again from your content and on television on Bowie TV, but also who may be new, and just learning about you, share a little bit about your background and how that ties to this overall conversation.
Sure. So I'm an attorney here in the Washington, D.C. metro area. And I have my own practice where I work with small business owners on brand protection, things from like intellectual property issues, like obtaining federal trademark protection, and helping brands and businesses build their businesses and make sure that they have the contracts and everything in place that they need to protect themselves and their business. On the college sports side, I have done a lot of college sports writing. I've been an early college athletes' rights advocate, as I thought the prior system that I was just talking about kind of left the athletes in the dust, even though they had scholarships. Those scholarships were not always equal to the value that their skills brought to college athletics. So I began to write about those things. During this time, the Alston case that I spoke about was in litigation at the district court level, and states were considering NIL legislation. I think in 2019, California became the first state to enact a NIL law seeking to allow college athletes in that state to profit from their NIL. And as I realized that NIL was going to become a thing, I began to develop materials that I thought athletes and their parents would need to know so that they can navigate the space and be in the best position to take advantage of those opportunities and really begin to use NIL to set themselves up for life after sports. So what kind of information do you need? You need to understand some of those legal concepts, things that I help my general business owners with understanding what a trademark is and how it applies to you and your business, understanding certain contract terms, and things to look out for as the athletes began to engage in NIL deals.
Awesome. And so then now going back to the roundtable last week, it was last Friday that you mentioned, right?
Yes.
It was the end of last week. So who were some of the notable names that were actually there at the table to discuss this?
So you had like your big Power Five commissioners like Greg Sankey. You had the athletic director of Notre Dame. I believe like Cody Campbell, which is the Texas Tech billionaire who has been instrumental in funding a lot of their programs, who was in attendance. It was really like a who's who of college sports, and I think Condoleezza Rice, I believe, was invited and was in attendance, and Nick Saban attended. So really like a who's who of big time college sports. and several senators and Congress people who are interested and invested in the topic.
And from the athlete side, I think there was a lot of conversation about the fact that there were not any current college athletes in attendance.
Right. There were no current college athletes in attendance, and I think there were only 2 women in attendance or something like that. So, and just which is highlights the problem, right? You started it by saying, but what is the purpose of the meeting? In a lot of ways, it seemed like the purpose of the meeting was to develop a way to turn the clock back on the progress that has been made for athletes' rights and on the current way that the system is going. They really kind of want to, what they're really after is that antitrust exemption that would allow the NCAA to be able to put rules in place with no input from the athletes. And it would also severely hamstring and really essentially take away the athletes' most effective vehicle at being able to um, expand their rights. So let's just back all the way up to when the Ed O'Bannon case happened. Ed O'Bannon was a former UCLA basketball player who saw his likeness in a video game. I want to say this was around 2009. And he sued based on antitrust principles, the NCAA and EA Sports and Collegiate Licensing Company for using his likeness, and he didn't receive a dime from that game. And that lawsuit really laid the groundwork that led to those other lawsuits and state legislations that I mentioned earlier. And that is why I just bring that up to highlight again why the NCAA and supporters are really after this antitrust exemption, because that would give them the power to kind of turn the clock back and begin to put things in place that restrict the athlete's ability to take advantage of the opportunities the way that they have.
Okay, and that gives that gives just an even bigger picture of the background context of name, image, likeness, NIL is acronym, and why this is so important for college athletes or athletes in general, right? Which makes it even more interesting that there weren't any in the room.
Yeah, and it's really kind of sad that there weren't any in the room, especially as we're we're getting to the point where like, hey, the athletes should have a voice. Like they're being more vocal. They're using their platforms that they've only been able to build because of NIL, right? And any rule that is made has a direct effect on them and in their collegiate experience. So to have a conversation about college sports without the people who play the sports really makes no sense. And then the other elephant in the room was the issue of employment for college athletes, right? So that's still on the table. There's been several things that have happened around that. The question is, should college athletes be considered employees? The arguments for it are that the fact that college athlete schedules are largely controlled or dictated by their sport, right? They have times where they can't choose a certain class because it may conflict with their practice. And we saw this play out even at the Ivy League level with the Dartmouth men's basketball players who were successful in being able to claim unionization. I think this was a couple of years ago. And that case was on appeal, but once the presidential administration changed, they dropped the case. However, and that case is under the National Labor Relations Act, right? But there's another case that's still pending, Johnson versus NCAA, which is under the Fair Labor Standards Act. And the question there is, essentially, should college athletes be considered employees in the same way that a student worker is? So I think one of the examples highlighted in the case was, why is the athlete playing the game not able to be paid the same way that the student who's selling popcorn at the same game is, right? And I will say with the employment issue, I don't think that the overall goal is for college athletes to be like employees and have the unintended consequences of employment, but it is to create a system where college athletes are able to have a voice, and that becomes important when you start hearing people talking about collective bargaining in college sports.
Right.
So how do we have rules in the professional ranks, right? If we didn't have an NBA Players Association, LeBron James probably make $1 billion a year, right?
Right.
But because we have a Players Association and they collectively bargain, then you have caps, and that's the way that they're able to do that and get around those antitrust principles. So, collective bargaining in college sports is certainly a complex topic, but it's definitely a conversation that needs to be had. And if you have it, you have to have the athletes in the room.
Have they said anything in terms of what the next steps are, right? So we've already determined, okay, one key stakeholder that this is wasn't in the room is what this is about, and it's the college athletes. So have any college athletes, have they come out publicly and spoken about this, or are there any plans to engage college athletes in these conversations?
So before I answer that, I also want to just point out the other issue in the room is the issue of Title IX, which is a concern with the lack of women representation in there. And that's also a concern when you talk about employment contests, because we don't want to lose opportunities for women's sports, and we also don't want to lose opportunities for Olympic sports. In order for those things to happen, you have to have adequate representation for those sports there too. To your question, I have not seen any athletes address the roundtable. So and I'm not surprised by that, right? They're at their schools, they have their sports, they're playing the game. I completely understand that. As far as what's next, the president said that he would have an executive order by the end of the week to address all the issues in college sports. I thought that was an interesting proposition, as these are issues that we've been talking about for decades. Like I said, O'Bannon first started in 2009. So, and the NCAA has been lobbying in Congress for years to get some kind of resolution, and we haven't had one. But I think people who are watching the issue closely are at least looking to see if an executive order comes out and what it says. But remember, if an executive order comes out, I mean, that's not the law, right? That doesn't mean that things are going to change just because that executive order comes out.
No, so I really appreciate, like I said, I know it was a hot topic at the end of the week, and I had questions, and I said, let me just try to get Kassandra on and let's talk about it, and let's figure out what's going on. Kassandra, could you let everybody know, if you all are subscribed, and hopefully you are, to Bowie TV, you can catch Kassandra's content on the Esquire Coach on the playlist on YouTube. Also, her content is also featured on Bowie TV, which, if you haven't cut your cable, it's in Prince George's County, Maryland, on Comcast channels 190 through 1097. Kassandra, can you tell people where else they can follow you online?
Yeah, you definitely can find me, like she said, on YouTube at the Esquire Coach. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok on @the_Esquire Coach. And if you're on LinkedIn, you can follow me in my name, Kassandra Ramsey, where I also have a newsletter that I put out every week, the Saturday morning NIL update.
Kassandra, thank you so much for taking some time out for this weekly DMV Sports update. Trust me, if there's anything else that comes out, I'm going to be tapping you again and say, give us the update. What's going on? Because this is a topic of interest in general, and I'm anxious to see what happens here.
So am I. Thank you for having me.
Can you have too much competition and on a team, in an organization?
Well, when you are losing, I don't think so. You know what I mean? When there's not a clear winner, when there's not a clear person, I don't think so. And I mean, I don't think you're gonna have 5-6 people vying for a spot, but I think that it starts first with who you're bringing in the door. Like, you know what you want, but you think a player possesses something, and that player does it. And if you just read their draft profile, or you read where the strengths and their weaknesses are, then you understand what they have and what they don't, right? I think at times, I'll say this as well, I think at times maybe some things are based on what you think a fit would be based on who you like. And likability is a factor, of course, because that adds to your culture, but I don't know if that's a talent evaluation factor based on what you need to be successful overall. I mean, it's part of it, but overall, are there too many? It's always a thing. You got to have a cap at some point, because you can only have so many people on your roster.
He said add a second part to that. Hold up. Is there, let me find this other part of his question. But I also want to add to that too. You have a team who's turned over a lot of players, right? So you really don't know what you have. So you want to cream the rise to the top. We also have a team that had injuries last year, right? And had to go looking for people. So you have to have depth in different positions as well. So the Washington Commanders needed the depth in these different positions They need to be, as Paul says, they need to be competitive. They need to be sharp. They also need to be effective. You got to be able to have the right people in the right place. But also the biggest point is too, when you have to sub people, you don't want a big drop off neither, right?
No.
His coaches, but you don't want a big drop off. Evaluation is prerequisite for development, and here it is. Evaluation is prerequisite to development. It's far easier to evaluate 11 starters than 19 starters. It is definitely true. Which is true, Coach. But I said also the same thing is you want as many. If you're the Washington Commanders and you look at how your roster got depleted last year because of injuries, you want to be able to bring people in. And guess what? If this person doesn't work, I insert here, and it's not a major drop off. And we know we watched this team last year when certain people got injured and we had to put other players in. It was a major drop. It was a major drop off from what you had. So you want to be able to have players that are able to rotate, compete, stay healthy for the most part, and so they won't be a major drop off. Because teams like the Philadelphia Eagles, when their players are hurt, there's not a major drop off in some positions with the Philadelphia Eagles, right? When you look at some teams, again, we used the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. Tampa Bay had the same injuries Washington had, and they were still winning football games. It was a major drop off in their organization last year because of what they had in their house. So Washington want to do that as well. So we talk about competition. Candi, we mentioned this on Monday, right? The Washington Commanders now have not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 tight ends because they signed today Chingy from the Tennessee Titans. So we have 5 tight ends for the Washington Commanders. As of today, as of March 11th, there's 5 tight ends on the Washington Commanders roster. Too many in the room. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it goes to show then what's going on with Ben Sinnott. What are you gonna do? I told you, I'm gonna be hard on it on that 2024 draft class. Somebody's got some explaining to do. And let me be clear. Remember, I said this on Monday. The problem is, why do you have to spend money on a tight end right now? Why? Somebody should be ready to go. You know what I mean? Somebody should be ready to rock. Nobody, not in that regard. So okay. And listen, Chig was on my list. That's right. Very good. Right? But that's because we know, to your point, so Zach Ertz was the best we had. Okay. Can't nobody take. All right. These are signs. These are signals. You don't have what you need to be championship caliber successful. This goes back to the use your clues on the relentlessly teaching. What was happening in the last 2 years? If you weren't relentlessly teaching, I mean, we knew that because we could tell, right? We knew that. But I'm just saying, Chig was on my list. I'm absolutely, that was information, intel that I got. I shared it with all of you. Told you all to continue when Isaiah likely was gone and this, that, and the third. I was like, oh, there's people available. Go back and look at the list. It'll be fine. You know, Chig is, well, that was one of the people that, yes. The challenge is why. That's where I'm at with it. So I'm looking at this 2024 draft class like, all right, what's going on here?
But Candi, you
conversation.
You asked the question why, right? And Coach says this: Washington lacked a tight end who could both block and catch passes. We talked about that the other night. If you combine all 4 of those guys, they probably make one good tight end. Now you have a tight end who can do both. Here it is. The NFL is a performance-based business.
Yep.
Right. It is a performance-based business. What Janet Jackson says, what have you done for me lately? Right. What have you done for me lately? And we know here that the tight end position last year, if you look at the numbers, did not produce. They didn't produce. When Zach Ertz went down, even Zach Ertz, while he was healthy, didn't produce the numbers he had the year before. Right. So you have to bring somebody in who's able to produce on a consistent basis. You don't know when Zach Ertz is coming back. I know you mentioned he's moving along well and he's doing well in the progress of facts. But again, you have you got Yankoff and you got Stinnett.
He's not coming back to be your one. No.
You're not coming back to be your one. You got Yankoff and Stinnett and those guys who have not, I'm going to use the wrestling term, who has not went and tried to grab the brass ring, right? They didn't try to grab the brass ring, whether because it's due to talent set because it's due to inability, due to the fact that they didn't develop. All that could be tied into one. There's no development, and the OC didn't like them. All that other stuff, whatever case may be, nobody grabbed the brass ring. Nobody stood out. So what do? You don't leave a good tight end on the table like Chig. Hey, guess what? He's out here. Let's bring him in. Maybe make some of those guys step up. It may send some of those guys home, but I guarantee some of those guys are going home. Somebody's not going to be on the.
You wasting
2 or 3 may not be here. So
you wasting time in a spot, because here's the thing, and I see some comments like it could be they only wanted them to block. I can confirm that's not the case. I think we could look at Paul's comment when he said there is no challenge. Candi, Ben was a miss. That's what I'm going back to. I'm not going to necessarily say that, but what I am going to say is, and you all can use your clues to draw your own conclusions. They had to bring in Chig of year three of someone you drafted pretty high. So at that point in time, this should be somebody who is actively performing on your roster. So you can use your clues on that one. That's all I'm saying. I mean, it's to your point. This is a show and prove year. What you doing? Or you wasting? You holding up the spot. You holding up time here. You got to learn. But this also goes back to relentlessly teaching. I don't know what's going on. I mean, they're gone. The coordinators are gone. They're gone. But I'm just saying, there's a lot of time that gets wasted in that kind of stuff. And it's unfortunate. Because you draft for certain positions so that you don't have this challenge, but
Tosh says this, the old OC campaign for the tight end and couldn't get him on the field, which is true statement. He did campaign for the tight end and could not get him on the field.
But that was
one of those.
But whose fault was that? You know what I mean? Like it was just, Interesting. I'm glad
there's a lot of fault going on there, because again, you look at the player, everything that we've talking about so far, and we've said this for weeks, and even doing in season, it comes back to player development. Players did not develop the way they need to develop on this team last season or the last 2 seasons, whatever you want to add, since 2024, right? Didn't develop. If you're coming back to second season running the same offense, right? Let's be honest. There should be better. There should be more development than you had the first year, right? Again, they have to admit, and we got to give Adam Peters. You have to admit that he was a miss. If you're Adam Peters and you look at the draft and you look at he is a miss, right?
That's what right. This is like what it is.
Let you know what it is.
Depth. Bubble wrap them now.
Yeah,
wrap them down. Unless you want to draft another, but then that's you shouldn't. You shouldn't draft another one. So I don't think they're going to use a draft pick on that. But
no. I think what we've seen in free agency so far, is this. We've seen that this team has went mostly defense in free agency. In my heart of heart, my belief that during the draft, this team is going to go probably heavily offense. Because I think they're filling a lot of their spots in free agency on defense. And then when we get to the draft, unless there's somebody that they just can't miss, they're gonna go offense at the draft and defense they're doing free agency.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on it. It's very interesting. And free agency will continue to go on. This will be an interesting time period. I'll be doing a lot of investigation on what the Giants are going to do with their pick in the draft. Tennessee and New York, 4 and 5, are really pivotal in what the Commanders do. There's still plenty of holes. There's still plenty of things that are not answered, even with all the defensive players they added. Obviously, right? There's things that still aren't answered, obviously. And the depth thing is still absolutely a thing. Absolutely a thing.
Kenny, I want to talk about this one, and this is we mentioned it earlier. We haven't mentioned his name yet. We talked about all the people that were signed today, but yesterday the Washington Commanders signed Leo Chanel, a linebacker from the Kansas City Chiefs, a tackling machine, a young man who can come down and stop the run. He's a run stopper. We talked about early in the show, run stopper. He is a run stopper. Can we start reading clues on the signing for Leo?
I mean, well, it depends on what player you think he, because I know who he plays like, and I know what it mirrors, and it may not be what people think.
Okay.
I mean, the key question is based on what he can do. And I actually talked to some Kansas City media, and they're pretty split on whether or not he can cover. So that's a challenge, because I thought he could cover as well. But people on the ground there don't give him a lot of credit for that at all. But in stopping the run, speed, getting to the quarterback, operating as an edge, is what those in Kansas City have shared with me so far. I can go back and look at some of the direct quotes and messages as well. But he is a beast. He is a tackling machine. Now, a lot of people were like, well, why he didn't stay in Kansas City? Why they didn't keep him? I mean, that's a loaded question. I think, hey.
Money talks.
But money talks. Money talks. But this was also a player that I had mentioned and said that, the Commanders were looking at.
7 sacks last year.
He doesn't play often. Could he be Mike? He could, but he doesn't do that. So I will say that out loud. So is this like what Frankie was supposed to do?
That's what I'm.
Is he who Kane was supposed to be?
Is this what McGee was supposed to do?
So, but see, McGee was supposed to come in to be Mike. He was Bobby's backup.
Yeah, but McGee played all over the place too. McGee, when they played.
Well, that's why I kept telling everybody, Bobby don't have no backup. In real life, yes, you're exactly right. In real life, as the field general, it's something to use your clues but keep your eye on, because I often brought up Frankie from 2024 season, 2025 season, 2024 season, 2025 season. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that one. And you can look at how he plays and say, well, who does he play like? What is the expectation for him to do? Everybody knows, you know what I mean? Everybody knows what everybody wants to say. So it's who is in trouble here. I think the obvious reason that everybody would think is immediately is like Bobby, but I'm like, are you sure? Because I mean, in trouble, sure, but I'm talking about in this specific case. No. So who on this roster before Leo's arrival was supposed to do that?
Right. And one thing that made Leo show up too, this kid only missed, looking at the stats, he only missed 4 tackles last year. I will put that out there, that he had a passer rating of 98.8%. He only missed 4 tackles. So go back to your coach. If you look at that 3-4, he played that Sam linebacker. If you look at what played the Sam linebacker, outside linebacker last year, the Oos has some competition. I'm gonna put it that way. The USO has some competition because there is. I'm gonna say it, Candi. You can't say it. I'm gonna say it. USO has.